Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of the Athletes Platform, where we put the athlete first and give them a place that they can share their story, all while providing you, the listener, with the insight you need to push yourself on and off the track. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Booth, and today we have our first guest who's living outside of New Zealand. He's originally from Hamilton and is currently living in Warrensburg, Missouri, wherever that is. He's New Zealand's #1 long jumper and triple jumper in 2021, Chris Goodwin. As always on the show, I like to promote the guests I have on, so please go over to Instagram and give Chris a follow. You can find him at Christopher_Goodwin18, where you can follow his journey in the US. Chris is currently studying and competing in the US on a track and field scholarship at the University of Central Missouri. He's a 773 long jumper with a 784 windy PB. He's jumped 15-17 in triple jump. He was 4th place at the NCAA Outdoor Division 2 Championships. He's the MIAA Conference Champion, as well as winning multiple secondary school titles in New Zealand during high school. On today's show, Chris and I chatted a whole lot about the US Collegiate system, sharing some of our experiences and especially diving into what it's like in the Division 2 level. Chris explains his recruiting experience and why he actually turned down some Division 1 schools and opted for the University of Central Missouri. We talk about some of the opportunities he's received, academically and athletically. Chris explains what he thinks has made him increase his long jump PB by almost a meter since he's been in the US, and he also talks about how he remains motivated even after failing to meet some of the goals that he set for himself. This really is a must-listen episode for anyone who's considering the US Collegiate system as a way to continue to pursue their sport, as well as seeing how the Division 2 level can be just as beneficial as going Division 1. Anyway, that's enough from me. Time to hear from Chris. Let's start the show. I appreciate you sitting down. I think you've got a pretty good story to tell about a Kiwi kid going through the Div 2 level in the US and making some big improvements along the way. So I look forward to chatting and actually finding out a little bit more about what you've gone through. So
thanks for having me.
No, it's good. And the first question, obviously, I know that a lot of people may see the US as an option but not really know too much about it, or they hear people talking about it but don't know how to get there. When did you first hear about the US and the collegiate system being an opportunity in sport, and then when did you decide that that's something that you actually wanted to pursue?
I think the first individual that I heard of going to America was Bailey Stewart, which is the 400 runner back home. He was a few years older than me. And then it was kind of the start of my high school year, so like January of 2016, I either had the decision of, do I apply for all these scholarships to New Zealand universities, or should I try my hand going to America? And I think at that point, Atipa committed to SMU, and I think Hannah Miller was over there as well. So at that point, I'm like, I think I want to give it a go. Unsure of if I'd get an opportunity or not, but if it didn't, it was worth a try. So my start of my high school year, my senior year in high school, I was like, I'm going to try this with my best effort and we'll see where it takes me.
Yeah, and I think that's probably similar with most people. It's probably as you start to get towards the end of high school that you do start seeing people who you may have competed with, or maybe a couple of grades above, they start to go, and that kind of, it maybe plants the idea in your head that, hey, this could be something I do. And I know for me, there were just some old coaches. My first coach, Roy Williams, he sat down and was kind of telling me about going to the US, and I wasn't even near finishing high school yet. But there was this whole pressure that like I almost had to try and decide from such a young age. But then you go along and you see different people can go at different times. Like I was 21 and had done 3 years of university before I went. But yeah, I think there is that time where people in your age group do start to commit to going to the US, and that does spark the scene. So then once you realize that, how did you go about getting yourself to the US? Like, what was your recruiting process? Because everyone has a different way of making it there. What was
Absolutely.
yours?
Well, I heard the first bit of information about the US through Atipa and Hannah, because they worked with an agency called KAA, Kiwi Athletes Agency. And I was nervous about doing it all myself because I was clueless about the whole process. So I really thought, to give myself the best chance to get to know coaches, get my name up there, I needed someone that knew the system. And so I worked through KAA, and they were awesome. I started really early, so I think that helped the whole process, sending lots of emails. But yeah, their support was awesome. They sent a lot of my information, which I kind of gave them. They compiled it, made profiles. They made the initial contact with coaches, but then coaches would then contact me.
Right.
So they would make the first move, which was really helpful for a shy young man. And then I got to make the relationships with them and see if it was a good fit or not. So that kind of started, might have been April or May in 2016, looking to start in August 17. So really a year in advance.
Wow. Okay. So I guess that gives you like enough time to be able to, get your name out there. You can show them results now, but yeah, you've got a year to keep improving. You can keep contacting them along the way, but yeah, kind of just saying, hey, I'm Chris, I'm interested in coming over, have a look at me, keep in touch type thing. So
absolutely. I enjoyed having that season lead up, so I already made kind of a personal connection, and then keeping in touch about what I'm doing in training. I've got these competitions coming up. I've got New Zealand secondary schools in December, moving to New Zealand champs in March, and Aussies in a couple of weeks later. So
how long before you started? So you said August 17 was when you started. How long before that date had you committed to University of Central Missouri?
I believe the signing period was in April of 2017. So after the end of our season back in New Zealand. At that point, I had 3 schools that I was really talking to. There was Rhode Island, who was a Division 1, and Ed Fern knew a coach there, which made my connection. So that was really nice.
And that's helpful, having connections with the school. You get to know a little bit deeper about what that school is like rather than going in blind.
And someone just highly respected in our event group in New Zealand. Having his words of wisdom alongside of it was really encouraging. The other university was a Division 2 called Texas A&M Commerce. Their coach lived in New Zealand for 8 years, so there was a connection there as well. So George and I built a really good relationship. And then the third university was University of Central Missouri, who I really had no connection with. But it turns out that's where I would end up.
How did you decide on that?
I felt that Rhode Island, the coaches there really were looking at me for my athletic ability and didn't take much notice in me as an individual. They were more, we need you to jump this, we need you to perform if we can provide what you're asking. Whereas George and Kip at Commerce and Central Missouri kind of really took the time to get to know me as an individual. And that was reassuring. If I'm moving halfway across the world, I want to know I'm going to be looked after.
Exactly.
So I made my pros and cons list. I had good, bad. Texas is nice and warm. Missouri gets a little cold. Texas A&M Commerce is an outdoor track, but UCM has both an indoor and outdoor. I had lots of little things. I even had their mascots on there too. Commerce was a lion and UCM were the mules. So at that point, I'm like, I feel like being a lion looks so much more intimidating.
Mule,
So I thought about it, and then I just went with my gut, if I'm truly honest. I kind of didn't look at my sheet. I went with my gut. I called Curtis, who was the assistant coach at UCM, and he was at the USA, I think it was a street shot put vault maybe. And called him, FaceTimed, we talked, and I said, hey, I think I'd like to come. And he screams, and I see people around him kind of turn around, what's going on. And I didn't tell mom and dad at this point. I didn't tell them I was going to commit. I rang Curtis and said, yeah.
They knew you were looking, and you had the intention to go, but you hadn't told them that you'd decided.
Which one I was deciding, yeah.
Okay.
So that was a little funny.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was full send after that.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I bet.
Not knowing or not having been on campus to look around and meet them in person. I was like, as great as FaceTime is, I'm sure you can agree, calling home is great, but it's never the same as in person.
Yeah.
But I felt comfortable.
Yeah. And that's another hard thing is we are so far away, we don't get to go to a visit. So you are making this decision based off the things, they are telling you a lot of the time. So yeah, and you touched on that Rhode Island may not have been looking at you from a like whole person aspect. They were looking at you really just as another member of the team that can score points for them at conference, which can be hard, and you want to make sure that where you're going, you're getting looked after. Like you said, you don't want to be just another number in the school and treated that way. So
you don't want to fall through the cracks. You want to be valued as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I felt Kip and Curtis were. They liked me. They liked my background. I respected their personalities. So I felt like a good fit.
Yeah. And so that's actually interesting because the one school that was a Division I school, which most athletes, especially overseas, would look at, they say, I want to be Division I. They've seen some of the big schools, the Texases, the Oregons, and they're like, that's where I want to be. And that was the first school that you kind of wrote off. So you had, you were choosing between two Division II schools. Did you have any reservations about choosing to go Division II instead of Division I?
Coming from New Zealand and not knowing too much about the US system, I didn't have a great understanding of what it meant to go Division I, what it meant to go Division II. Yeah. I didn't follow American football or basketball, so the hype and stigma of those sports really doesn't resound with me. So at this point, it just looks like a financial game. Division I is where all the money is. Yeah. Division II doesn't have as much money, which money's important. Yeah. Like, unfortunately, in life it is.
Yeah, and especially when you're paying international tuition.
Absolutely.
A big thing.
However, track and field, it's the sport no matter where you go. It's very simple. It's very elegant. Yeah. Anyone can succeed at whatever level they are. Yeah. A great example I might touch on later, our head coach, Kip Janvrin, he went to a Division III college, which they actually not allowed to give out athletic scholarships. Yeah. So he stayed in around his hometown, went to Division III, graduated as a decathlete, and went on to represent the US at the 2000 Olympics in decathlon. Yeah. And
that really, it doesn't matter, what level you've been at. You can, if
you have the desire and the passion and the correct support system around you, anything's possible.
Yeah, I think that's huge. You said the support system, and that's really, I feel like what you've just talked about, that was what gave you that gut feeling about going over. And it's hard to the coaches at every school, they put on their best front and sell you what they can just to try and get you there. And sometimes, it doesn't live up to expectation when you get there. But I think if you know you've got a gut feeling that I'm going to go to the school, they're going to give a shit about me, and I'm going to get the best support I can possibly get at this school, I think hands down that has to be where you go. As if you feel happy there and you know you can openly talk to them, that's going to be a big part into where you decide to go.
And you might sympathize with me. I don't know if you had the same train of thought, but I always felt whichever university I would end up deciding on, as long as I apply myself and give the best effort and put myself into good opportunities, I was most likely going to be successful wherever I go.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You never know that, but whatever choice you made, you always believe that if you put your best foot forward, good things are going to come.
Yeah, and I guess once you've made that choice, you can't change that. You have to be happy with it and commit to it. And like you said, go full send and just pin the ears back and do what you can. But you talked about this right before we started. There is always an opportunity to go from a Division 2 to a Division 1, and I think a lot of athletes may not understand that concept. So can you put your thoughts on that?
Yeah. When I began looking at universities with KAA, I was also looking at kind of junior colleges, which is the 2-year ones, because they advised me that a lot of Division 1s recruit from these JUCOs, so what they call, and they produce some really good athletes.
Yeah, I know a lot of people at, whether it was Kansas State or here at Long Beach, so many have come through JUCO.
A really close one to where we are is Coffeyville, and Andre DeGrasse actually went to Coffeyville before he transferred.
Yeah.
Darius Clark, I don't know if people follow Jumpers World. He's always doing these crazy jumps, kicking a rim.
Yeah.
He competed at Coffeyville, and I got to jump against him before he went to Florida State and Texas A&M. Yeah. So there's always pathways for you to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
JUCO to Division 2, JUCO to Division 1, Division 3 to Division 1. You could go to Division 1, come back down to Division 2.
Yeah.
There's so many possibilities, and there's no right way.
Yeah.
Again, it's what's best for that individual.
Yeah.
And for me right now, it was good to be in one place.
Yeah. And you saw that opportunity potentially in the future once you've done 1 or 2 years at UCM that you could get into a Division 1 school, but things change and you've stayed there and you've made progress. And you talked about it before about the opportunities. What sort of opportunities have you been able to get through the Division 2 level and through your university? It doesn't have to be athletics, it can be academics. Yeah,
well, if I go back to my freshman year, I think the first thing coming from New Zealand where there's no indoor tracks, or there's a little strip up at in Auckland, which is nice, and now Hawke's Bay, but I turned up to UCM and they have a 200-meter flat track, which in my eyes this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They've got an outdoor track, which is across the road. They got a nice big weight room. I love the convenience of the fact that if I stayed at home in Hamilton, I was most likely going to have to train at Pirate. I'm going to have to buy a gym membership. I'm going to have to go to class, and that's driving all over town. Yeah. So I think the greatest opportunity I've felt is having everything so localized. I can go from class to get lunch, to go to training, to get treatment from physios, just all in one place.
And Warrensburg's a pretty small place.
It is a pretty small, as you would know.
Yeah. I thought Manhattan was small, but then came to Warrensburg, and that was definitely a lot smaller. But
would have been
convenience is good for that.
I think that was October, maybe 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vincent and I persuaded Aaron to come down and join us for a party one weekend, and I think we had a lot of fun. It was great fun.
Weekend, yeah. It was fun. It was just again, we're going off topic a bit, but it's cool it's cool to go and meet up with people who are close by that you've had connections with back in New Zealand, and then you go at different times. You didn't know Vinny, I knew Vinny, then you guys just happened to go to the same school, and it's cool. Like the people you meet while you're overseas, I think, is probably one of the best things I feel like I've gotten out of it.
And it's one of the greatest opportunities as well. You get to meet people from all walks of life and make relationships with them and pick their brains. The academic side of our university, for a Division 2, we are quite large, which is fun. So there is a good culture around the university, from different majors to social activities. I didn't partake in a lot of it. My needs are very simple. I love track. I'm going to spend every second I can in the facility around my coaches and teammates.
Yeah.
But in terms of degree options, I was handed a bunch. Yeah. I had the cream of the crop. I changed my major a few times, actually. It went from civil engineering to construction management, and I ended up back at teaching. Feeling it out, and I think the best thing is they were flexible. They allowed me to try. They allowed me to experience the programs and settle on what I actually liked.
Yeah. I guess that's I have pros and cons with the US system, but I guess that is the one more positive about the whole general education programs that you're made to do at the start, is it does give you time to kind of decide what you want to do, and you've got a bit of wiggle room to change what you want to do along the way, rather than if you're in New Zealand, a lot of the universities, you decide what you're doing, you're straight into content. So
absolutely.
I mean, if you know what you're doing, it's a bit of a hassle, and you're like, come on, I don't need to do history of rock and roll, or I don't need to do music or art, but...
And then even the general chemistry, it's like, oh, this is year 12 NCAA all over again.
Yeah, but it's just part of the experience. You just have to go through it. And there are some gen ed classes that are all right. I was lucky that most of mine got written off transferring in, which was quite nice. But yeah, it does give you time. I just wanted to take a quick break in the episode just to reiterate that if anyone listening has questions about the US system, what the experience was like, how it is moving away from home, living somewhere else, how you go about getting recruited, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask myself or Chris. If we can't give you the information you're looking for, we're more than happy to try and put you in the right direction to help you get the answers you need to your questions, to help you make a decision whether or not going to the US is right for you. Yeah, I said to you as you jumped on, you are almost what I'd consider to be like a Division 2 success story, really. I mean, I'm not saying Division 2 is any worse than Division 1, but I think coming from New Zealand going in, I always thought Division 1, that's the way I'm going to get better. Division 2, I've got the opportunity, but it may not be the right option athletics-wise. But seeing your progress over the years has really shown that that's not the case at all. I did jump on ANZ rankings to have a quick look just to make sure the numbers were right. But yeah, you left New Zealand doing all the jumps, high jump, long jump, triple jump.
Yes.
You haven't really high jumped a whole lot since you've been there. But long jump, you left with you're a 2 meter high jumper when you left as well, which is pretty handy. But yeah, a 7'10" long jumper, and now you're New Zealand lead in that, jumping 7'73" and a 7'84".
With a bit of wind.
With a bit of wind, but that doesn't matter. And then even triple jump, you left with 14'36". Yep. And you're going 15'17". So I want to hear a bit about your progression and the things that you feel like have helped you along the way. I mean, you've almost put a meter on your long jump, and yeah, in 2021, you're the longest long jumper and the longest triple jumper from New Zealand. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, you're very kind with your words. Appreciate it.
Hey,
I think it goes back to when I was young, and my dad was my coach growing up, and he was very patient with me. Yeah. Like, I was around the sport since I was 2, watching him coach, and he was reluctant to let me really get into it until I was 7, and even train a lot of the time. He didn't allow me to do that till after I turned, I think, 14 or 15, once I got through my growth spurts. And I believe that patience has set me up for where I am today, not burning me out when I was young, letting me enjoy other sports, and just enjoying track and field in general. So I owe a lot of my progress now to what Dad did back when I was young.
Yeah, and not pushing you to specialize.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to, and he agreed, he was very reserved with how much we would do.
Yeah.
And in the time, I may have been a little frustrated at times, but now I'm very thankful for his patience and his wisdom guiding me through to where I am now. When I arrived, I was a 7'10" long jumper and a 14'36", which in our conference, the MIAA, was okay. I would have scraped scoring. I might have scored 5th or 6th in long jump and on the outer of triple jump. So I really came in not being a stud, not being amazing.
And just for people listening who may not understand the collegiate system, at those big meets, you've got your nationals. So Division 1, Division 2 have their own nationals. And then below that, there's a regional meet, which qualifies you for that. And then the third biggest meet of the year will be your conference championship. So every school is in a conference, and you compete against other schools, basically scoring points, and whoever has the most points wins. And points are scored on a top 8. So back home, you get medals for top 3. In the US, you get medals for top 8. And 1 through 8 all get points towards the school and the team to help the team win a conference championship, which is often the big thing that most schools target. So
Absolutely. And the team aspect, we very rarely get to experience back home.
Oh, not at
all. It's all individual. So coming
Yeah.
to America and having a culture that wants to win a conference title, that's the dream. It was really fun having a group of guys, a group of lads that I want to come together for a collective effort to win as a team.
Yeah.
As much as it requires our individual performances, it's all together as a collective. So as a freshman, I came in very raw. I was soft-muscled. My knowledge, I think, was a lot better than a lot of kids over here.
Do you think that helped you?
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think
absolutely.
Coming in with knowledge about the event in general that you do, and like a little bit about your body. If you understand how your body works, what it responds to, what it doesn't respond to, I think that's going to help play a long part in your longevity, like in the US system as a whole, just from my experience. So I'm glad you touched on that.
So yeah, my freshman year, I kind of come in and we really worked hard on high jump that first semester, if I'm honest. We were there 2 mornings a week working on the same little thing of just figuring out my foot position. And we got it to a point that we felt quite successful. And then the first high jump meet of the season, I did none of that we worked on for the past 5 months. And at that point, both Curtis and I never really mentioned it again. And we haven't since.
Mentioned high jump?
No, we kind of just shoved it and brushed it under the carpet.
Yeah.
So I had a really great fall. I got faster, I got stronger, which I think was just training, but also just me maturing as an individual. I'm still growing. I'm still those types of things, the natural.
Because you were 19 when you got there?
Yes. Yeah. I turned 19 maybe a month before I arrived.
Yeah.
So great fall semester. We have our very first comp, which was a home indoor, and my very first jump, I jumped 731, which at that point I'm like, I just blew my PB out of the water.
Yeah,
in
the first competition.
Very first jump of the very first competition. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, indoor was good. I jumped some more 720s. I had a 670, which really threw me back into the dumps because I thought I had got out of the 6 meter club.
Yeah.
But you move through it, got to conference, and I placed 4th for 722, and I was really pumped up. I got points for my team. No. Triple jump was rough. I jumped another big PB, 1476 maybe.
Yeah.
Give or take a little bit, and placed 5th or 6th. So again, I'm contributing to the team. I made really big improvements, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we start the outdoor season, and I ended up getting tendonitis in my knee, and I really couldn't train for that whole season.
Yeah.
I jumped at outdoor conference. I jumped 727, and my season's over. So I peaked at the very first jump of the very first comp of my first season, and I didn't improve. So I was really disappointed knowing that I started off so well that I could be on such a high. And so we went back and took summer off and built back into training, starting off my second year, and another great semester of training. We get to the first comp, which was our home meet again.
Yeah.
And I jumped 732. And I'm like, there we go.
Yeah.
PB, first comp again.
Must be the indoor track.
It must be. And then I got to 737 in that indoor season and qualified for Division 2 Nationals.
Yeah.
So we just take the top 16, they get to qualify.
Yeah, for indoors, yeah.
So that was a great experience. I got 10th, which just misses out on the final.
Yeah.
But just to be there was really valuable.
Yeah.
Moved into outdoor, and I jumped a 751 on our first outdoor meet. So now I'm starting to see this progress.
Which is good. Like, you've made this big decision to go to the US, to get a degree and to get some financial help with a scholarship, but a lot of the time you're going over for athletics. And
absolutely.
You're making a big move to see if you can improve. And you come out first competition ever in the US, you PB, brilliant. But then you don't do it again. But then to come back the next season and to see that improvement continue is like, okay, something's going right, which is what you want when you've made such a big jump.
As long as I've seen improvement, that always makes you feel good, whether it's in the weight room with accuracy, your speed testing,
yeah.
All those little things. But the cream of the crop is if I can put that little bit more on my distance, I'm going to be super happy. Yeah. And we get through to the end of the season. I don't jump further than 751. So that was the beginning of April. I didn't jump further than that until Outdoor Nationals for Division 2, where I jumped 768.
Yeah.
And at that point, I am super stoked because that was a World University qualifier.
Yeah.
It was windy, so it doesn't count. But for me to get to that point, and if I'm going to progress in track and field, my first stepping stone was qualify for World Universities.
Yeah.
And so for me to, even though it was windy, to jump 760, it made me feel so good.
Yeah. And
made me feel like
I have time. You did it
exactly.
You peaked perfectly and did it at the biggest meet of the year for you, which was nationals.
And that's what you want. You can jump as big as you want throughout the year, but if it's not at your national champs or the meet that counts, it's never the same. And so those first 2 years were growing at a lot of patience, really rocky roads.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I trusted the process, which our coaches preach.
Yeah. Before you continue on to the next year, I think that's super important is you've got that New Zealand competition that you're targeting and it's there, World University Games. Like I know I used that competition 3 times as like a stepping stone for me because back 2017 or 2018 Commonwealth Games, World Champs, they're obviously a little too far out of reach, but you've got the World University Games there, which is another big meet that you can use to prepare yourself for bigger meets in the future. So I think having that meet there for you as a target would you say that was a lot of what was like driving you that season?
Yes, a really good motivation. And Division 2, though we have some really good jumpers, it gives, I think, athletes like me who can see potential or are talented but aren't the really good Division 1 athletes, they have the chance to go to Division 1 nationals and prolong their season.
Yeah.
For those first 2 years, if I was in Division 1, my season would have been done and dusted by the end of April.
Yeah.
Since I was in Division, that would have been my last meet. But since in Division 2, I can move on to nationals. My season gets prolonged till the start of June.
Yeah. And
so
like you said, Division 2, you've had guys there jumping over 8 meters, right?
That meet that I jumped 768, there was 2 kids that jumped over 8.
Yeah. There
was another 2 or 3 in the 790s. At that point, that was the best long jump competition I've been a part of.
Yeah. And you don't have that depth in New Zealand.
No.
So continue on with the next season because this would be COVID year or is this?
Yeah, we started my 3rd year, which we lead into when the pandemic hit. I'll touch back on those first 2 years. The biggest things I felt, and I think the coaches could sympathize, I always felt the 2 key things for me to improve, whether it was long jump or triple jump, I'm going to keep focusing on long jump because triple jump I really don't like.
Yeah.
But I do it because I want to be the most valuable person I can be on our team.
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to help your long jump training anyway.
Yes, so absolutely.
Don't specialize, kids. This is something that I keep pushing. I talked to Hamish Kerr the other day, and a big thing was just not to specialize. So continue.
I'm specializing over here. I started high jumping. I run on some 4x4s. I throw discus around every so often.
Yeah.
I watch the multis. I know, it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, those first 2 years, I always felt the big things that are going to make me better is I have to get faster.
Yeah.
I was slow. I ran, my best in the 100 was 11.7 before I came.
Yeah.
And then stronger. I'd only really touched the weight room my 13 year of high school. Yeah. And I felt if I can improve those, if I can get faster, if I can get stronger, I'm going to jump a lot further.
Yeah.
And that's a big principle in what our training was targeting. Was can we get faster, can we get stronger? So leading into our 3rd year, that was our goal. I did a speed cycle over summer to lead us in, had a great fall training. We tailored our competitions to peak for indoor nationals.
Yeah.
We worked heavy during those first meets because, again, we're not trying to jump out of the world in our first few. We want to treat them as training opportunities. We want to grow as an athlete so we can peak at the right time.
And sorry, did you have a say in this? Or was it was what the coaches were telling you they wanted you to do, or you got to go to them and say, hey, look, this is what I think I need?
I think it was mutual.
Yeah.
I love my relationship with my coaches, both Curtis, Kip, and Guy. And Guy Mosier is my main specific coach.
Yeah.
he was really good at listening, and we bounced ideas off each other. There was times where I trusted him. There's other times I gave him my 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
But it's a great working environment, and those three have worked together all their lives. Guy coached Kip when he was in college, and we worked through his professional career. Guy and Kip coached Curtis growing up.
Wow. So
to have them all together, it's a really good dynamic.
And they all obviously understand how each other works, which is it's great for like a coaching system and a program and a system for you to like thrive under.
So yeah, we get to Division 2 indoor nationals, and we're down there for 2 days. We're warming up, we're preparing. I'm very confident at this point that I can get my first All-American award. I was one of the most consistent jumpers on that lower end, and I was ready to
top 8. Top 8?
Yes.
Yeah, top 8 in the nation for your division.
So I came in ranked, I think 12th, 13th or 12th. But I felt very confident that my training progression was leading to a big jump in this coming week, and a lot of kids were inconsistent. And the night before, very similar to probably what you experienced, they shut us down and our season was done. Yeah. And so that was disappointing. And after a week or two of just kind of moping around and having some fun, throwing hammer, it was, okay, my next season's coming. It's World Universities. Yeah. It could be my last year in track and field in the US, so we're going to go for it. So we started another speed cycle as if we were continuing our outdoor season. Very, very little jumping. We're going to sprint, do 2 speed intense sessions, and let's get faster. Yeah. And that gave me a great base leading into that next semester, which was this past season. We're up to now. Yeah. And again, our training was, can I get faster? Can I get stronger? How demanding can we get into blind metrics? And then it's plan our season, plan our competition schedule. I always like having a weekend off to have a 2-week training block, because I find it very hard to achieve stuff early season if we're competing every single weekend.
Oh, for sure.
We come to conference and I jump 7:48 and 7:49 with some big fouls. And so I'm feeling really confident we're in a good place. Getting to nationals, yes. And I always believe that consistency breeds big jumps. Yeah. So we get to nationals. I jump 7:57 on my last jump to get third, and I get my first All-American award. And as much as I always felt that national championship for us, for me, it's just, that was there on a silver platter and it said, Chris, come take me. But for me to get third, to show that my 4 years at UCM under the coaches, my progression to get to that point and get the trophy, which is what all NCAA athletes want, I was over the moon. Yeah. Very, very thankful for the opportunities I was given for those 4 years. Yeah. And then automatically outdoor. I want to jump 760 because, again, that's the World University standard. Yeah. It's always a good first target. Yeah. And I open outdoor and I jump 7:48, and I hurt my ankle on the first jump, and I kind of jarred it, and the rest of the outdoor season wasn't the same, which was unfortunate. I still jumped 7:48 in that comp. We then made a decision I wasn't jumping in training for really the rest of the year. Yeah. We're saving my foot to try do the good stuff on the day.
When it matters. Yes.
Still could sprint. I just really struggled putting my foot down into the board and absorbing all my force.
And I like that because I had the same experience. Like after nationals indoors, stress fracture in my foot. So it was, I think a lot of the times you hear those stories about being in the NCAA and the coaches they thrash you. They want points every weekend from you. So it doesn't matter if you're injured, if you can't walk, they're going to be putting you in an event. But yeah, I was the same. I had the whole outdoor season off and came out at conference, the last chance to qualify for nationals, to do a decathlon. And your same scenario, you hurt your foot and it's not, shit, but Chris, we need you. It's, they're caring about you more than just points, which
absolutely
I think is I said it before, it's a massive thing when you're deciding on what school you're going to and making sure that you can have a say in your program, but you also have a say in what your competition schedule looks like. So.
And I believe that the coaches over the past 4 years have been a blessing. They demand success, and I want to be successful. But if things don't go that way, they're going to support me.
Yeah.
That freshman year, when I really didn't jump any further than my very first comp, they could have been really mad.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get out there, you need to do this. But they were patient, they were kind, they worked with me, not just that year, but every single year. Yeah. And as I matured as an athlete, both mentally and physically, when we get to the outdoor season and we made the decision, let's not jump in training, we know that it's going to be the best in the long run.
Yeah.
The big thing that happened after indoor nationals, when I jumped my 757, I was doing a 1.5 hitch. And I was struggling that whole indoor to stop over rotating into the long jump hit. Yeah. And I always felt like I was cutting distance off my jump. So the very first outdoor comp, I said, I'm going to try a double hitch. It looked ugly.
No better time. First competition.
No better time. But I jumped 762 with a legal win, so a PB.
Yeah. We
go to a second meet at Pitt State when I jumped my 748. My first one being a really big foul, and my double hitch was looking very clean. So I'm not over rotating, so I'm figuring things out. Yeah. We keep sprinting, we keep lifting, we take time off from jumping. I come back at our home meet and jump 784, and it doesn't, it doesn't feel amazing. I don't know if anyone's seen there's a video floating around, and I just walk out of the pit like, yeah, that was okay. 784. So I know I'm doing some good things.
Send it to me, and I'll chuck it in the notes.
Okay. So at that point, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I would have never thought at this point I'm going to jump 784. Yeah. We move into conference the following weekend. I jump a legal 773, which at that point, I always think wind under 2.0 is what we want. So to say that I've got my big PB 770 with legal wind, I'm super happy. We move into,
like you said, consistency breeds a big jump, and you've really shown that over the past few years. Like, every season has been, you may not have had a massive PB, but every year has been there or thereabouts, and slowly getting bigger and bigger. You haven't chased the big one.
Yes.
You've gradually built your way up, and then you've hit the big one. So.
And I'll be honest, there is times that you're frustrated. You really want those big jumps to happen.
For sure.
I felt very demoralized seeing everyone over in Napoli at the World Universities in 2019. Yeah. A lot of kids that I was around in that age group that were over there, I really felt like I missed out. And so I think that also spurred me on to really keep progressing.
Yeah, how'd you deal with that?
We just get back and train.
Yeah.
No. I know. I
know
it's
sometimes
hard.
Some kids, like, if they don't make a team, like, you can be, it can like dig away at you a little bit. And I know, for me, 2018 Com Games, that was one. I was in the US, but I was just like I missed my chance. And
it was good though, because I watched it all. It was fun. I love watching you guys 1500 with you and Max finishing off.
Yeah.
That was fun. Glued to the TV yelling. But I don't know. In that moment, it's sad, and you saw the photos and the fun times. But I know my time will come if I keep progressing, and it might be that my Olympics could be the Division 2 National Championships. It could be that my Olympics is the World University Games. Yeah. But there's no cap on the ceiling. You keep working hard, you keep having fun, and just see where it takes you. Yeah. And finishing the season jumping 784 and having a legal 773, at the end of the season, knowing how outdoor went, it's the first time that I've really believed and felt that I can actually make these bigger teams. Yeah. That there is a chance that I could jump 8 meters and qualify for Com Games. There is a chance down the line that if I keep improving, you could go to the Olympics. All those that at one point I felt were just really far-fetched dreams that you still want to chase, now I see as very tangible and achievable.
And I think that's what keeps you in the sport.
Yeah, not guaranteed, but there's always a chance.
In athletics, you've got that mark that, whether it's a Com Games standard, an Olympic standard, or to make nationals in New Zealand or something, you've got a mark there that you're always chasing. And if you feel like you can see that, that's what keeps you going. And I mean, it doesn't matter what level you're at, whether it is at the biggest stage of the Olympics or whether it's qualifying for New Zealand champs. That's why athletes do it, especially in track and field.
And there's so many opportunities. Colgate Games for the really young ones.
Yeah.
I was like, they were the great times of my life. I wanted to go get my little pennant on the screen.
Exactly.
I wanted to go to New Zealand secondary schools, and first year was make the final.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite memories was when I was in year 9 at New Zealand secondary schools in triple jump, and I'm on the runway and I hear it clap, and I'm looking around being like, oh, who's competing? And it's like 10 of our boys high kids up there clapping. Like, go embarrassed.
Yeah.
There's all those little victories that you can strive for, and everyone's different.
Yeah.
But we can find beauty in track and field in many different dimensions, and I think that's why I love it so much, and I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're getting towards the end of the episode, but the last thing I want to talk about is like your life in the US. Where do you see yourself going after this final year, and have there been times in your journey away from home where you've maybe thought, hey, this has been good, but this may not be for me? Like, have there been times where we've struggled in the US?
I think I've always held a pretty, brave face. I don't get flustered too much.
Yeah.
I've always felt I've loved every second here, and this is where I want to be for my immediate future, at least.
Yeah.
You get homesick every now and then, and you miss your family. But the opportunities I've been afforded here, I want to make the most of them, and I'm enjoying every second. The people I've met, friends and family that have helped me along the journey, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
I would love, obviously I've got one more season coming up, part of the team. I truly believe if I keep progressing, I'm going to give 8 meters a great crack.
Yeah.
And that's the one goal I have on the fridge and my phone. It's just 8 meters.
Yeah. 8 meters or 805? Because 805 is New Zealand record, right?
805 is New Zealand record. I'd love to jump 777 and get the New Zealand indoor record.
Yeah.
That's the first step. And then outdoor, if I can jump 805,
806.
806, that's true. You don't want to equal it.
That's one of the longest standing New Zealand records.
You might be right. I don't know the finer details, but was it Bob Thomas?
I think it's Bob Thomas.
Yeah.
Maybe back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this season, that's the goal. If I can jump 806, I really hope they will qualify me for the Common Games.
Yeah.
That would open so many doors that I can keep going at the sport at a high level. Yeah. And that's a dream as a kid that I wouldn't have thought possible.
Yeah.
So to have it so close and have at least a chance to go get it is exciting.
Yeah.
I would love my next year, and I'm pretty confident I would love to take a GA position on the track team under our head coach, because he is phenomenal. I love every second with him.
GA's graduate assistant, by the way.
Yes. So for those that don't know, I would get my master's degree and I will coach on the track team, and that's how I will fund my stay. Yeah. But being able to do that, I can give back to the track team that's given so much to me over the past 4 or 5 years, and I'll also be able to pick up the knowledge and continue training myself.
Yeah.
That could be to go overseas to hopefully one day come home and win a New Zealand championship, because I have not done that yet. So hopefully that day comes. But I miss home. I love home. But the opportunities that have been presented here in the US are too good to pass up.
Yeah. And I think that's been the biggest hit for me is, there have been times along the way where I'm thinking, I've had enough of this. Like, I just want to get back to my mates, get to my family. But then it wasn't until I booked a flight home with no return ticket where it was, shit, these 4 years have gone really quick.
Yeah.
And you do almost sit back and you reminisce about it. You think about that first day I walked into my really crappy apartment that I got put into, and like the first times you met your mates, the first competitions you went to, and it's a journey. And
you've met so many people at competitions through your classes, and I struggle to put myself out there. I'm still relatively shy.
Yeah.
But there's friendships and relationships I'm going to have for a lifetime.
Oh.
And I can't thank anyone more than UCM track and field for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
The greatest thing that I've had also this past year is Kayla, my sister's, been able to join me now at the same university.
Yeah.
So
cool.
we grew up training together. We go away for 3 years and really not be able to see each other compete. So to be together has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, tell her I might get her on, because it'll be cool to get the experience, or get her opinion and her perspective of what it was like for you to go over, and then for her to join you at the same school. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
She's I think in her, hope she doesn't mind me saying this, I would say I was confident with the situation. I'm going to put myself out there. Yeah. She was quite reserved, and I believe this experience coming to the US has changed her personality, demeanor, just approach to life so much, and it's been great to see.
Yeah.
She's had a lot of health problems, but for her to do what she did this past season she had a tear in her Achilles, and she PR'd in nearly every single event. So for her to do that and battle through the season, I'm super excited to see how she progresses, and hopefully I still get to be here as a GA and help her.
You can coach her now.
I know. I'll take all the success. I always say that she watched me growing up, and when I would do something wrong, she'd be like, "Oh, okay, so I don't do that.
Yeah.
Just jump further on your last jump, and there it is."
Love it. All right, Chris. Well, the last thing I ask everyone before they leave is, what is the one piece of advice you'd give to athletes?
Trust the process. Enjoy the process.
Yeah.
If you have those two, you're going to be in the sport for a long time. You're going to love it.
Yeah. I definitely think you have to enjoy what you're doing. Yeah, there's days that you hate it, and there's a workout that you'd never want to do. But as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, that's what's going to keep you in it for the long run. So
you enjoy it and you trust, because it's a process. Track and field is a longevity. Yeah. Nothing's given immediately. You just got to trust that the plan that you set in place is going to pay off in the long run.
You've showed it, mate. So.
No, I appreciate it.
It's been good chatting.
You too.
Thank you so much again, Chris, for coming on the show and sharing what it's been like for you living in the US over the past few years. I'm going to do my best to try and get on a few more athletes who have been in a similar situation and gone over to the US on scholarships, to provide the listeners, you guys, with more experiences and more information about the process and their journeys. Please remember, jump on Instagram, give Chris a follow, and while you're there, head to the Athletes Platform page, comment your thoughts on today's episode. I really love the feedback so far. It really helps me know what I can do better and where you want to see this podcast go. So please continue to give me feedback, continue to comment, continue to like, continue to share. Let's get it out to as many people as we can. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you next week.